Hello everyone and welcome back to that one playthrough of MMORPG Tycoon 2. I am Kyle once again, and today we're actually following Gerard, our first ever player to enter the game just a little bit, with his magnificent shovel weapon that he clearly is using. I think right now he's waiting to join a party, so we'll see if some people catch up to him real quick. Looks like he's got one wizard attaching to him thus far. Figured I'd take a little bit of time to kind of look at some of the player classes, kind of just evaluate where some things are at here nice and early on. I did notice kind of briefly a lot of these, as you can see, the wizard here has a lot of demands for nerf. That's not just them. That's pretty much everybody right now. And I think what's happening is in groups, as long as parties are enabled, a lot of our classes are a little too strong. As you can see, the paladin and the ranger are actually not too bad, but the fighter of Zephyr and our wizard are a little bit strong compared to what everyone is saying. What I will say though is they are tier A. I would like everybody to be tier A, and these guys, yeah, tier B on the paladin, tier B on the ranger. So I think, this sounds kind of strange, but I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to buff up some of the enemies. And the reason I want to do that is because that way the player classes stay the same in terms of how they compare to each other. I think in terms of PvP battles, there wouldn't be that many demands for nerf. There would be more demands for a buff if something was weak. So like the Angari Ranger is weaker than, say, the Fighter of Zephyr or the Wizard when it comes to fighting each other, but compared to PvE, fighting enemies, they're a little bit too strong, people feel like. That's my assumption. I don't know. This is a little bit of an experiment. So what I'm actually going to do is just reevaluate some of the things here. Now the other side of it too is once players hit level 2, they got another ability. And now that there's more level 2 players, it could be that the level 2 abilities are a little tad too strong. So we'll kind of double check some stuff, but I do think I want to give a little bit of a nudge to some of our enemies. And so I'm going to start off with the spider here. Instead of just 2 damage over 5 seconds for the piercing venom, we're going to go 2.5. So it's actually only 0.1 damage per second increase. Not too bad, but should be enough to kind of give them a little bit of an edge compared against player classes. As far as the slow drain mana, this is fine because if our wizard is too strong, this is something that should be good against them anyways. So, well, maybe we actually buff this slightly. So let's see, 1 drain mana, it drains mana. It doesn't just get rid of it. Or no, that would be, hold on. Oh, I'm thinking of siphon ability, not drain. Drain is fine. I don't want the spider to siphon it. That's a little too interesting, too specific. Yeah, so we'll keep it as a drain, but let's make it 1.5 over 5 seconds. So again, another 0.1 drain per second. And then as far as the root in place, 3 seconds. That's pretty good. Unfortunately, you can't see. It doesn't tell you if enemies are actively too strong. It doesn't give you like a demands for buff or nerf. It just always keeps them at 0. Maybe that's something that'll come in the future. I don't know. I hope it is. The kobolds have kind of been a little bit weak all around. They only have the 1 ability. I will give them another ability here pretty soon because I do want to utilize them, I think, in our desert region before we finish up there. I think this is fine. It's got a relatively low-ish cooldown, 1 damage. These guys were more about swarm mechanics, so I wanted more of them in the enemy zones. So I'm not going to dabble with this one. The skeleton I am utilizing elsewhere. I think this guy is actually pretty tough when you fight him alone. When you fight him in a party, they're not too bad because they die pretty easily. Got low health, so not too worried about that one either. Bandits, maybe we can adjust a little bit. I think these guys are decent damage. Yeah, that hits like a player class right there. I'm okay with that. Root in place and a weaken. Yeah, these are all okay. Gives them a little bit of an edge. And then this was a bunch of kind of burst damage, but with a long cooldown. So these guys aren't actually too bad. Maybe let's bring this down to 10 seconds. So if the fight goes too long, bandits can get a pretty rough jump on you if you get too many of them on you. Okay, that's fine. Now, as far as player classes go, I think we really need to look at the level 2 abilities. Now that there's more level 2 players, that's probably what's causing a little bit too much of the overall damage. So we'll make sure this is set to level 2 so we get the right maths done up here. The 2.3 damage and dealing 3 damage over 8 seconds. So this is This is pretty horrendous, actually. I kind of wanted to keep these even, so if it's like a multiple of the other, so this is basically half 0.5 damage, or no, 0.25 damage per second. That's actually not that bad. I don't know if I can go 0.25. I don't know if it divides that far or not. So the question is, should I make this, whatever the dividing number is that's occurring every second, an even tenth of a damage point? You know, I'm gonna go like this. We're gonna go more upfront damage, so 2 damage up front, which at level 2 will already be 3 damage. So that's a pretty big smack. Nah, you know what? That's too much. That is definitely too much. Let's make this 1.0, because it's going to be 1.5 at that level. Now that's kind of the same, I think, as some of their other abilities. Let's double check. Yeah, this is damage and assault. Ooh, that's... I actually don't like how strong that is. So let's nerf this. That'll help out the balancing a little bit in the grand scheme of things. So we'll nerf that slightly. Spark, I believe, is kind of their base ability, so it should be no mana cost, low damage, but it does siphon some mana. I do like that mechanic. That's a good one. And then Fireball. Yeah, so 1 damage up front, and then a lot of burn damage. Fireball maybe should be more of a big burst, but I do like the fact that if it's a flame mechanic, there should be burn damage. So maybe I just make the burn damage really, really light. Let's say if it's 0.2 damage per second, that's going to mean 1.6 damage over time. So okay, so that's a pretty substantial nerf to this ability as a whole. But overall, over the course of that 8 seconds, your wizard's going to do 3.9 damage. We'll try that. Now the fighters, they're a little OP too. Let's look at upper hand here first. A weaken and 2 damage. Let's go like this. Let's keep the weaken. I like the weaken mechanic, but we'll bring the overall damage over time. Oh, this is damage over time, actually, isn't it? So it's like a bleed effect here that I was going for. A lot of rage, so I'm okay with that, but this will allow for stacking. That's what it was, because I wanted there to be them dealing damage, they're constantly building rage. They're not really a cooldown based mechanic as much as they are a resource dependent mechanic. So as long as they keep the rage building at a high rate and keep attacking, they can keep this active. So if this is constantly active, that's something to think about. It's a constant weaken, you're constantly dealing more damage. Let's do this. Let's leave the 2 damage over 10 seconds, because that ends up being 0.2 damage a second, which is really not that bad. And we're going to nerf this right now to 20% and see how that affects, because that's 5 seconds. So if they don't renew this ability, if they don't reuse it, they won't continually get the damage over time. And then even if the damage over time is still going, they'll lose the weaken. And maybe we actually take this down to 4 seconds just to diminish it a little bit more. Yeah, that's a pretty substantial nerf for that whole thing. The damage is the same. Actually, it's not the same because the weaken is not as good. So overall damage is brought down a little bit because of that, and it doesn't last as long. Let's try that, see where that ends up, because I think this was, yeah, I brought this down to the same damage as all the other base abilities, but allowed a rage generation mechanic with it. Same with Shield Bash, low cooldown. Should this even have damage, I guess? 0.3 is not too bad. This is okay, 6 rage. So if they did 3 basic attacks, would generate enough rage. Well, 2 basic attacks actually would get enough rage, because they'll generate 2 rage from it as the bonus that occurs from it. So just for clarity, so everyone understands this, if they deal 1 damage, I believe he gets 1 rage. You get the amount of rage equal to the damage you deal, and I think you also get it equal to the damage you take. So if you deal 1 damage plus you generate 2 rage over time, now technically this would be 0.25 rage every second plus 1 rage. Yeah, I guess after like 2 to 3 attacks of this, you would have enough rage to do a shield bash. It's kind of a weird thing. This is a tough one to actually balance unless I were to actually start playing the character more, which I probably should do at some point. But just so everyone's clear, the course of this ability, you're going to end up doing, 3 rage every 8 seconds in theory, but you're going to attack again because it's only a 2-second cooldown, half a second cast. So that's every 5 seconds you're going to guarantee 2, and in 5 seconds you get 1.25 rage there. So there's 3.25 over the course of 5 seconds, Plus, if you're getting attacked, so maybe actually you're not getting a shield bash as often as I thought, so that's not too bad. And we can always make it take longer. Essentially, we don't have to change the cooldown. We can just take longer by making it take more rage. So I think for now this is fine. And then obviously this allows for rage generation too. You'll generate 2 rage over the course of that 10 seconds. So you're constantly generating rage from rage generation over time from your base ability, rage generation over damage over time from upper hand, as well as getting the weaken, allow you to get a bunch of shield bashes in potentially, so that you can, you're essentially being a berserker type, like damage tank. Not a bleed tank, but like a, I guess tank's not even the right word, because you're not absorbing damage. I will probably have some mechanic that features that at some point, but for the time being, their damage, rate of damage output, their DPS, is completely dependent on how quickly they're generating rage rather than the cooldowns itself. A little complicated, but it's going the right direction that I want that to go. And then the Paladin, I don't want to nerf them. Let's definitely take this up actually, because I'd like them to be a little bit closer to that A tier. So we'll add 0.6, see what that gives them. Their base attack was low because I'm giving them a lot of CC and healing, so they really are supposed to be a tank. They've got a root in place with a minor amount of damage. Big one here being the protect and a heal. I do like this being a burst heal. Just straight up heal, 3 health, 15 second protect. Maybe this cooldown's too long. Let's go 10 seconds on this. That's pretty substantial in my opinion. But it gives them the heal more. Maybe we make this just a 10% protect, and then we add other protective abilities later on. I don't know if they'll stack though, that's the problem. And then our rangers, I was actually having a discussion with one of you guys in the comments. The dagger, I want to keep it melee because it is sort of a backup ability. From what I've seen from players when I've observed them playing as the ranger, and I'll kind of see if I can find one real quick. When they play as the Angari, and it looks like they might be, they're about to go socialize, so that doesn't really help us very much. But for the most part, when they're in combat, they use their arrow at a distance, and then they'll run up, use the dagger, and then they actually like use that slow as an ability. Oh, there we go. So you used a dagger right there. They're staying in close combat, but they did get rooted, so that doesn't help. Yeah, so they got slowed, they run away. Yeah, there we go. That's what I want to see. And then they get distance, and then they shoot an arrow again, but they get rooted. This is a tough one to fight because spiders at level 2 have a root in place. But that was kind of, you saw like they hit it with a dagger, they run away, then they shoot an arrow. That's the mechanic I want to see. So you're trying to keep your distance. You don't necessarily have to run up to the enemy to do that. This wizard's doing a good job kiting too. He's hitting him, running. I just get really excited when I see him kiting like that. So people get how to play it. It's just, I don't want everything to be ranged on the Angari, because if it is, then you really have no chance of getting on top of them. And when it comes to a PvP standpoint, you want to make sure that there is some counterplay. And if they're constantly slowing you down from a distance, then you have no way of getting on top of them. Plus the fact that at level 2 they get the grapple ability with the net. They get a long root in place plus a weaken. I mean, they will start to just destroy enemies. All right, so not going to go too in depth there with the player classes any further, but I think we made a couple of adjustments that are necessary. Let's go over back into Saphir here and look around just to recap kind of where we're at and what my plans are here moving forward. So first and foremost, somebody mentioned I needed wells. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll put some wells in. You got some wells. I'm not angry about it. I'm just, you know, I didn't get to a lot of the detailing, but yes, we should make sure there are some wells kind of scattered around. We'll add some more scenery around them, give them a little bit more, you know, reasoning as to why those are the necessary locations. But probably necessary, being in a desert, that's a thing. So what I want to do here is really hash out our quest lines here. So kind of head back into our border crossing site here. That's a little bit chaotic to some extent. But we'll take a look at Royal here, the guard at the border. So he has you go to the inn, mostly because we want to make sure that we're creating those player loops again. Check out the smith. And then he says go speak to the guildmaster, which is at the Capitol building in our city. I think that's probably all we need from this quest giver. There could be something else, maybe like you can't get your papers validated. Oh, that's a good one. Let's say you don't have papers, so we'll create one. And then let's move it up to there. So you go to the inn, you return to him, maybe you check into the inn, and then he says, okay, you're unable to get valid papers, so we need to have another quest that you do an errand maybe for him, so that way he's willing to kind of let you in. Sort of kind of like a bribe, I guess, but not really. So I'm not really sure where to send him. Right now, this is sending people really far away. So what should he have you do? He should have you, well, I mean, in theory, you would go to a main building because you have to somehow get confirmation that you're allowed to be here, but we need to kind of, I guess, flesh out the quests that will lead you to him as well, which could be a reasoning as to why you don't have papers, but maybe you have some other information. Or not some other information. I mean, you're being told, if we remember correctly from our quest that happened in Brightwood, you're told by the general here that you need to head to the main city of Valkyrin, which kind of takes you into Eastwash here, and then that kind of leads into a bunch of quest lines here. And along the way, the conversations should kind of be like, oh yes, I'm supposed to be headed to the capital city of Valkyrin, so what I actually need to do is come back in here to Ronan Loudfoot. Yeah, right now it's just go to a civilized market spot. We don't want that anymore, because that's not really necessary. And he should be like, okay, you've done a lot to help us out here. I'm gonna send you over here. Tell him I sent you. Here's some paperwork that you can use to kind of convince them to let you through. And we're gonna call this the Road to Valkyrin also. Hopefully it's okay with me having two quests of the same name. It doesn't seem like it's a problem. Small amount of experience, no gold. So that actually sets it up so that when you complete the quest lines, for the most part in Eastwash, you'll come over here. And then players shouldn't be starting this quest line with Royal until their appropriate level. So if they're not level 4, they probably won't be able to... I'm assuming the game doesn't have them go any further. They might, but for the most part, they'll kind of realize like, oh, these are too high a level quests. I need to finish up in Eastwash if they haven't yet. Maybe we need some kind of like official guard or something here. So let's say one of these buildings will... No, these are like, I don't know, not high-end apartments, but there's something more specific. Let's say this one, just because it's kind of by itself. We're going to say this is kind of like an embassy. Embassy. I think that's how you spell embassy. Probably not. I'm probably horribly wrong. And we're not going to give you any gold for it. We'll say very small amount of experience. No, not that. These are higher level quests, so we should go a little bit up with it. Okay, so visit the embassy instead. So these are kind of just all fetch quests. Then you can go check out the smith. Then he goes speak to the guildmaster. So he kind of gets you out of this area. We can always add some side quests within this area of some other stuff to do potentially, but for right now, I want people to be encouraged to go here. Now, in theory, to go there, they're going to get on the airship because there are no walking paths anymore. Oh, there's some water down there. That's not good. There we go. Get rid of that. There's no walking paths to get there, so they kind of have to take the airship. Now, we should make this actually cost something. Let's see, I got 20 gold. Gold should be pretty easy to come by for players at this point because I've looked on a couple of them, and from a looting standpoint, you know, I can click on a random guy here and 210 gold. So by the time this character and they're level 1, by the time they get to that area, 50 gold is really not that much. I could probably make it more if I wanted to. This one will jack up a little bit more. So we're not going to sink the price here. Let's make this, I'm going to make this 250. I know that's a lot, but the goal is I don't want players to just nonchalantly go over there. They're only going to go over here once they're kind of tasked to go into that region, which is not the case yet. So then when they're over here, they're going to go to that building, and that's where the quest line ends. So what we should do is we should have some other quest givers kind of scattered around. We're going to kind of put a fighter of Zephyr out here. I can't really put them in a building per se. I mean, I guess I could slide him in there, but then it'd be hard to click on him later. So I'm gonna put that guy there, and Ananpool the Wise. I like that. That's a good name. You can keep that name. So the first thing we'll have him do, oops, what the heck are you doing here? All right, so this is gonna be one of our guild leaders. We're gonna have a couple guilds in this town that kind of run the place. Right now, this is the guild currently holding political power. That's why he's outside the Capitol building. And the first thing he's going to want to do is kind of make sure he can trust the player character. So we should have some kind of like major quest line for the region kickoff here. I've got a couple ideas like with the prison area we built last time, but that's not really going to be region specific. That has a lot to do with some bigger picture things. So here's kind of what I'm thinking. 2 guilds, they each have their own industry within the city. One of the industries I already know is going to be, one guild is kind of the main proprietor of building the airships. They control a lot of travel in and out, both the city and around the empire as a whole. So that's one major thing. The other one, I think for this region specifically, not to key into lots of other franchises that use this, but in a desert, water should be a vital component, as we just talked about wells earlier. And so there's this kind of control over water. So we're going to say that Ananpool the Wise, you know, no pun intended that there's pool in his name, I guess. We're going to make him in charge of the water guild. Not water guild, but guild in charge of, like, guild that's in control of water in and out of the city. So I think the first thing he should do is he's going to want you to check on all of the wells. We're going to need to create areas for you to go to. So there's a well there. I put a well over here, and then I think I put a third one, yeah, right here by the side entrance down in here. I don't want to create 3 quests, because if I create 3 quests, that takes up a lot of his quest lines. Well, I could do that, and then I could have him kind of branch off to other quest givers too. That's an option. So let's do this. Let's say first one, we'll just have you go. Well, I guess the real question is there's nothing to click on at the moment. So hold on to everything. We need to grab some guards, and we'll put in some additional fighters around so that they're standing specifically next to the wells. And we'll just say the guards are there because the water obviously has to be controlled. They regulate how much water people can get. Maybe there's a charge for taking water as well. Yeah, so we'll have a guard at each one, and then this guy is gonna just tell you to go visit with the guards, and you're gonna collect the money from them. Collections, and we'll just call this well number 1. We'll say he's gonna give you a cut of this for doing it for him, as long as you bring back all the necessary money. 56,000 experience required for the level up here. We're gonna say 500 for this. We'll give 500 for each one of these. And so we'll just kind of get the location first. We'll say go to this well second, over here, that guy. And then collections well number 2. Go to this guy. Collections well number 3, 500. So these are pretty small, easy tasks within town. Go. Why is this one so dangerous? It's interesting. Oh, there it goes. Went down. Okay. Yeah, so really easy to do, but kind of like, you know, helping this guild out to some extent, and you're not really sure what's going on with them, you know, in the grand scheme of things per se. Okay, so then he said, then maybe like, let's see, we can have another quest giver that we'll throw in here. Oh, we got another days of payment too here. That's good. We have 26,000 bucks. Nice. I'm gonna put a quest giver hiding in the bushes here, and this is gonna be, we'll put him back here a little more. We're gonna call this Warden Helios. Warden Helios is actually working for a third group that we're going to learn about here for the first time. We're going to call this Pang to Live. Now, I think if I change the location, it might actually, you know, change things. But so that guild currently controls the capital. But let's make a building that this guy kind of knows is kind of a guild building, and I want to utilize this building. So he's going to say, okay, so you're currently doing collections for this guy. Now the player character, when they talk to this guy, they might not find this quest, but we're gonna assume that there's kind of a connection there. He's not gonna offer you anything really, but he's gonna kind of present you with some information. All right, so he's gonna basically say, like, you know, this guild has such control over the city that they're actually requiring people to buy something required for life, and as a result, there's a lot of poverty in the town and a lot of unhealthiness, and so people have to give all their last dollars essentially that they could use for other things to basically have enough water to survive. So there's kind of this like glimpse of corruption within the city and the way the guilds control everything. So he's gonna have you go to that building and he's just gonna say like, hey, I want you to watch the amount of gold that goes in and out of there. There's a lot of corruption going on in the city. He just wants you to kind of observe things. And then, you know, if the player wants to, they can come back and we'll add more quests here to kind of get players involved in the Warden's quest line. So we've got the collections of the wells now. Now we need to, we'll probably have this guy, let's send him to this building as well. He's gonna say, go here, and I need you to drop off kind of all of the money. Call this guild deposits, and he'll give you more gold because this is kind of a, oh, not that much, 25 is fine. And then we'll say like 1,000 experience, kind of get people really kick-started here. And he's gonna kind of let you in on it. So if you went and observed with the other quest line too, you might already know information. If you've kind of done this quest, like you'd be able to get into the building because you were given access. And then from here, it's like, we'll say there needs to be like a final trust exercise. I'm not gonna add it in yet, but it'll be something that will have the player do that maybe gets people to think and second guess what's going on with this guild too. Oh, our ad campaign has ended. Positive streamer coverage. Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Do I have any advertisements? I don't. Should I start one of these again? Maybe I should, just to kind of keep things moving. I know game exposition, I think it does the most. It's expensive. Maybe we just do an easy website advertisement, 7 grand. That'll kind of keep things flowing. That's probably not a bad idea. All right, going back over to Warden Helios real quick here. I want to make his second quest kind of what it introduces you to the second primary guild in Zephyr. Not necessarily because he wants you to join them, but because he wants you to see, you know, the second field of corruption that exists. We'll edit this, and he's going to send you over to the building here. That is the kind of the shipbuilding yard for the airships. And we're going to call this Corrupted Sales. Let's make it just introductory, kind of like the other one. So 250 is good experience, no cash value out of that. So he'll send you over there and he basically wants you to see kind of how they operate, I guess. You're not going to see much other than that they're building the ships. And as a result, let's go ahead and hit play again. As a result, we'll have a quest giver over here that's going to be a guild leader as well. Or not a guild leader, but a member of a guild who's over here that works for, you know, the shipbuilding yard. I fish fecht the enlightened. That's not gonna happen. We'll call him Yellish Windbane. All right, let's get rid of one of these quests. We just know one here to start with, and let's go ahead and say, you know, he's going to have you talk to himself. So we'll do one of those little dialogue type quests. Make this short experience too. He's not gonna pay you, and he's basically gonna ask you for, you know, work. We'll say looking for work, and he's gonna basically ask you if you want to be a part of the shipbuilding cruise, if you're looking for something to do. And kind of to get you started here, he's gonna make a simple request to get supplies. Now, I'm gonna say I do want some level of corruption that has to do with the forest. So before we do that, I actually need to kind of build something out. So the question is where? Kind of want it to be in the foresty section here, but it's got to be secluded and kind of covered up. So I'm thinking maybe behind this rock. So out of town, behind here. Yeah, we're gonna grab some of these stumps. Need to flatten it. We'll add some of those, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actively, unfortunately, delete some of the trees we've got in here. So this will kind of be a noticeable section if you're walking by, but you might not think of it too much at first. And this shouldn't, yeah, it shouldn't affect the scenery portion of this too much. We'll leave those trees up there. We'll kind of create some different sizes of these. Good size, big one in here too. All right, so I've created a monster zone with some bandits in it to create an enemy here. And we're gonna think of these as like woodcutters that are out here doing work, but they're doing it illegally. You're not supposed to be cutting down these forests. They are all protected by the city council has created laws, and the guild that makes the airships is illegally harvesting wood in order to continuously build more airships. And they're kind of using their control in parts of the city and the city council to get away with this. But they're also kind of sneakily making it part of an operation by a separate subcategory, so they're contracting it out. So we'll have this guy here who's part of the guild, but he doesn't actually do any of the wood cutting. And he's going to be the guy that we'll have our players go and make a connection with. And our players can then kind of be like, wait a second, there's something going on here that shouldn't be going on. So we'll go back to our guy here by the shipyard. We'll make his next quest. Going to take players all the way out here to this guy, and our guy at the shipyard is gonna say, we're gonna say today's lumber shipment, and I'm not gonna capitalize letters I don't need capitalized. We'll jack up this to be a little more experienced. We'll say he'll pay you for this one. We're getting to be a higher level, so 15 gold is not a ton, but it makes it kind of worth it too. So you're gonna go and basically get today's lumber shipment, or parts of it, kind of directed, I guess. I don't know if our player character is not going to be able to carry a bunch of lumber. We'll do that as the next one, and the players can start to see, like, wait a second, there's some funny business going on here. Now, if they were directed by this guy, our, it's hard to click on him when he's in the plants, but our warden here, Warden Helios, he's the one that's going to direct them, obviously, to this quest line to investigate, and then they'll start doing work for this group where they'll start to realize there's corruption going on. All right, and then you're going to need to pick up a shipment of, like, cloth. So we're going to have them go over to the air depot. So we're just going to go to the air depot, and we're going to say shipment of cloth, and that's what's used for the sails. Not as far. Let's say this is 750, but we'll give 15 gold again. And a lot of these are like, again, these are kind of setting up some storyline and some activity going on in the city. So you're going to basically be doing some, you know, under the radar, underbelly type of black market work for the guilds. But the point being, again, that the players then start to understand why they should be fighting for, you know, the people of the city and not just the wealth of it. Okay, so he'll have you do a couple of things for them. So then you kind of understand, like, okay, there's one guild that operates by controlling a valuable resource of water in the area, and then there's another guild that controls travel and trade within the area, and neither one of those two guilds really likes each other. Holy crap, why is this bear following people out here? What are you doing, bear? What are you... And how is this wizard kiting you like a boss? This is impressive. I am thoroughly impressed. You, sir... Oh, he's level 2. I mean, well, this is a level 2 quest, isn't it? This is a level 2 elite, I think. I don't know. But you, sir, you are Wizard of the Day. I'm gonna favorite this guy. Charipster. Charipster is, he's a baller. He's definitely a baller. Anyways, yeah, two factions, or not two guilds here that don't really like each other, but they kind of understand that each one of them has to have some reliance on the other in order to stay functioning. And they kind of alternate power in a sense, kind of like, you know, differing political parties in a way. All right, let's find Helios here again. All right, so basically now he's introduced you to two other quest lines that the player can start to learn about the guilds. Yeah, so we got Pang to Live and Corrupted Sales. He's going to make a third one where we're going to basically direct people to kind of, I guess we could almost consider it a third guild that is more of a mystery and just is made up of whispers, and some people think it's legend, some people think it's, you know, those who know or have felt the direct impact of the corruption of the city. They're kind of like the Batmans of the area. They have a tendency to scour about unseen and unheard, but help out the people and help fight off the evilness that the guilds might try to take control over. So those would be the wardens. Now we need to kind of figure out where the wardens are going to make their base camp. And I don't want to make another building, but I also don't want it to be too close to this one, and I don't want it to be close to the other one. We can kind of put it over here on the side. I'm thinking maybe it's inconspicuously kind of down here or something. Yeah, so let's go like this. Let's take people down into this building here. So he's gonna say, hey, if you're interested in making a difference, you should go here. And we're going to call this the Warden's Way. And we're going to give 500 experience, no gold. So now all of his quests equal 1,000 experience, which, although is only a small chunk of everything for the entire region, he's again just kind of directing you to this directs to a quest line, this directs to a quest line, this will direct to a quest line. So he kickstarts a bunch of things here. The other thing we need to do is I need one of these to kind of connect to the main quest line. So I'm going to come back to Anandpool the Wise, and his last one I left open. He's going to bring up something a little related to our main conflict that the player doesn't really know about. And this will actually be the first introduction to the concept of some of the evil that's actually going on that they've experienced in Brightwood over here. The stone tower and then the skeletons around it. But you don't really get much insight to it. You're just kind of examining what's going on at first. So we'll make this one a big experience dump, because you're kind of finishing up some stuff with this guild leader who's kind of the ruler of the city, but is going to direct you to an issue that is currently going on at the neighboring prison. So he's going to send you over here to talk to this guy, and this is Commander Beltris. And I kind of built this out a little bit, expanded a little bit. I added some more cactus compared to the last episode. You'll see there's a giant skeleton region here now, and inside the prison there's skeletons as well. So you're going to go to not search for the princess. We're going to call this prison riot to start with. Yeah, I'm good with a good chunk of experience. So after you're done with that guy, you're actually pretty well on your way into the midst of level 4 and on your way to 5. All right, so Commander Beltris here, and I've got to click on him. This is one of our Throne Watcher guards, so he is a pretty dang strong guard to begin with. Really tanky, really defensive oriented. He's got a bunch of Zephyrian guards around him, and then I made like a little adventuring party that's kind of here with you. That's part of the guards. It's a little tribute to one of the stories I already made in the comments of an earlier episode. These guys are actually named after the characters I made in that little story. So you'll recognize Elivac, Dornius, and Roman. So Commander Beltris is saying, okay, there's a huge problem that's occurred at the prison here. Something occurred, something kind of radiated outward from deep underground, and as a result, all of the prisoners were kind of wiped out, almost all at the same time, and then were raised as these dead soldiers, or not soldiers, but just they were raised as dead that are now kind of mindless and on their own, and as a result, oh man, this is actually really problematic now that I see this. Anyways, we'll fix that later. And so you've got another big issue with some undead popping up. So he's going to have you, first of all, head straight to the tower here. You'll have to investigate. There's not really anything else I can target in here, I guess. We'll have you go investigate that, which shouldn't be too difficult. I think this says danger's not too bad because it's not going that far. And this is a main quest line, so let's say this little short fetch thing is going to be 500 experience. Not locating a sock. All right, so the quest designation is go to the Tower of Alamok. That's the prison. We'll kind of make a little death row prison reference. Dead man walking, because they're scaled. Never mind. Okay, so he's gonna say investigate that. This next one, we'll say when you go there, the player character is gonna be finding like a prison document that kind of signifies all the people that were in it. And he's going to ask you to kind of look for survivors. So we're going to have you direct over to these guys I put over here in the corner who have escaped. We're going to direct you to this guy who is another quest giver. And these are actually just the bandit assets and some of the guard assets. So we'll kind of say like these were guards, but these were also prisoners. And they're just kind of stuck working together because they somehow escaped the explosion that caused all the death and destruction and raised the dead. And as a result, they're now trying to just evacuate, but they've kind of come into a point where they're cornered. So in doing so, I have a fence in here, so players won't be able to walk this direction to just cut back through there. They're going to have to go around. We put a fence, obviously, through here, so they're going to have to loop through the skeleton region to do so, to make it over there, and you're going to find the survivors. So we'll call this Look for Survivors, and this should be a good chunk of experience because you're going to have to fight your way through here a little bit. So we'll leave that as kind of the base one of 2200 experience. 10 gold is fine. It is relatively dangerous to be able to go through here. I made this crowded. It's something we might have to change at some point. You'll notice there's already monster deaths because when they spawn too close to the guards here, the guards will then fight them off. We'll leave it as crowded for now. The skeletons aren't too tough from a defensive standpoint. These guys are really soft and squishy. Even at level 4, they've only got 14 health. But they are pretty annoying as far as damage over time and their damage output with a weaken. I will probably add another ability to them just because at level 4, skeletons, or not skeletons, but pretty much everybody I've labeled as being able to get another ability at level 4. So let's actually look at that real fast. So right now we have the rattle, which was the weaken, does a little bit of damage. What I want to do on this, I'm actually going to bring it down because the weaken is probably the biggest portion of this. So damage, really light, and then they get a 50% weaken. So then the next time they attack again, 2 seconds later, they're going to get a little bonus of damage. 50% will be, this will go from 0.6 to 0.9 damage on the next attack, as long as they attack within that 3 seconds, which they should be able to because the 2-second cooldown. So again, that's why I made that as a super annoying thing, but I want to nerf that a little bit because I don't want later on for that ability to be too insane. If it's too strong, then later, the more abilities we add to them, they're just going to be more and more overpowered. Damage over time with Death's Touch. So melee range, they have to get right on top of you. 10 seconds, 1 damage over 10 seconds is actually nothing when you think about it. As long as you keep the weaken on them though, that is 1.5 damage over 10 seconds though. You know, I'm gonna make this base 1.5 at level 1, and then that way, so at level 4, it's gonna be 5.1 damage over 10 seconds. You gotta remember player characters are gonna be a little beefier by this point too, so that's not too bad. With the weaken on it, you can always say, okay, if it's a level 4 enemy and we gave it a 50% weaken on one of its abilities, right now I have it set so that every level gives them 50% more power. So you could say that when the weaken is in effect, this ability will actually do the equivalent of its level 5 stature. And then Undying, this is just to make them an annoying nuisance. So 34 damage over 6 seconds. Gosh, that's at level 5. Level 4, 20, yeah, so 20 health over 6 seconds. A little over 3 health per second for an enemy that has 14 health. So obviously it's an overheal, but if you're dealing damage to them over that 6 seconds and you can overcome the 3 damage per second, which some characters should be able to do at level 4, it just makes it a nuisance basically. Like they just take a little longer to kill. So again, this this enemy is weak, base health, but if they're constantly getting this big heal, it's annoying. They can only do it once basically per fight though. So just as a reminder of where we're at on all these abilities, I do want to add one. So what I like to do when I'm thinking of making abilities, and I haven't really explained how sometimes I go about these thought processes, but I like to look at the potential things I can add into it first, and then kind of evolve what the lore perspective is, like what's the overall reasoning that this type of character would be able to do that. And the thing I like the most about these skeletons so far is 1, the damage over time, but 2, I like the idea of them just kind of being frustrating a little bit. And I know sometimes enemies in games that are frustrating are just that, they're frustrating, but I don't want them to feel like they're hard to kill per se, and I don't want them to feel like if you get a jump on them, you should be able to take them out quickly. If you don't have all your resources available, like your mana's low or your rage isn't generating, it makes it tough. So the fighters of Saphir, as long as they keep into combat with these things, they're going to be generating rage. They'll do fine. Paladins will do okay. Wizards, if you run out of mana, you're going to have to sit back and wait for that to regen. So I think what it would be cool to do is make these kind of give them like an anti-rage ability, which really will only affect the fighters at this point. But because this is their region, I think it kind of makes sense that at level 4, that's the first time you see this, because fighters, I think, have it pretty easy. Wizards have it easy as far as DPS. They're soft and squishy, so if you know how to kite, you'll do well. But let's kind of make this a anti-rage. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce rage, which I think should be applicable to the enemy that you hit with. Mana, we're going to go kind of small because we want to make sure that the skeleton's able to do it. And we can always buff their base mana too if we need to. And then maybe a slow. So that way, even if they're not a rage-based player character, You know, if you're a wizard and you're based on mana, this ability would do nothing to you. It wouldn't be a problem. So we'll still add a slow, so it's gonna effectively reduce the wizard's ability to kite. And I like keeping these kind of slow so it's enough to where, again, the skeleton will be able to get a jump on you and get closer if it needs to, so it can use this as a way of getting that death's touch on you. And then I think as far as rage reduction, let's make it a little beefy. So 4 rage gets reduced on the enemy. And then this should get a decent cooldown on it so they can't do it too often. If it's too often, they'll just deplete rage too quickly and fighters won't be able to do anything. But I want to make sure that they can use the slow often-ish enough so they can get on top of somebody like a wizard or a ranger. So we'll do that. And we'll call this Death's Bind. Get a good little icon for this. Kind of like these skeleton-y ones. Let's see what else we got that's kind of evil undead looking. I'm gonna use this one maybe for now. And I might modify this ability too as I think about it more. But I want it to be just more or less a big debuff, not an extra damage ability. Alright, so the skeletons have a little bit more in their kit now.
And that's when tragedy struck. These are the last 3 remaining shots of a corrupted video file recording. But it teaches us all a very valuable lesson. That when first you don't succeed, try to double check your OBS recording settings so you don't screw this up again in the future. And I think this teaches us all a very valuable lesson about what we've learned here. Oh my god, what the hell is that thing?